thought I was retired, comfortable, safe, but I gave it all away, every penny, every bit of dignity I had left, and now I'm 71 years old, begging strangers for help. This is how a beautiful woman in Makati destroyed everything I spent my life building. I'm sitting in this upscale bar in Makati, and I can't believe what's happening. Her hand is on mine. She's laughing at something I said, some stupid joke about Liverpool weather, and her eyes are actually sparkling. "You're so funny, Malcolm," she says, and the way she says my name makes my chest tight. I'm 71 years old, she's 29. And right now, in this moment, none of that matters because I feel alive for the first time in 5 years. "Tell me more about your wife," Liza says softly, leaning closer. The bar is nearly empty, just the soft glow of amber lights and the hum of Manila traffic outside. I don't want to talk about Margaret. I came here to escape that. But Liza's eyes are so warm, so genuinely interested. "She passed 3 years ago," I hear myself saying. "Cancer. It was quick but not quick enough, you know?" Liza squeezes my hand. "I'm so sorry. That must have been terrible. Nobody back home talks to me like this anymore. My daughter Beth calls once a month, dutiful but distant. My mates at the pub, they just want to complain about their knees and the government. But Liza, she actually listens. She asks questions. She cares. 'What brought you to Manila?' she asks. I shrug. Needed to get away. Liverpool's cold. Too many memories. A mate told me the Philippines was beautiful and cheap. I laugh, trying to sound casual. Turns out he was right about both. She smiles, and it's like the sun coming out. I'm glad you came. I don't usually talk to customers like this. Why me then? The question comes out before I can stop it. She tilts her head, considering. You seem kind. Lonely, maybe. But kind. Her honesty catches me off guard. I am lonely, desperately, achingly lonely. Margaret's been gone 3 years, but the house still feels like a tomb. Beth moved to London years ago, and she's got her own life. I've got nothing but a pension and memories that hurt. I am lonely, I admit, surprised by my own words. Every day's the same. Back home. Wake up, tea, telly, sleep. I wanted something different. And, is Manila different? Liza asks, and there's something playful in her voice now. I look at her, really look at her. She's beautiful, yes, but it's more than that. She's present. She's here with me, not half checking her phone or looking past my shoulder like most people do when you're old. It's starting to be, I say quietly. She moves closer. I can smell her perfume, something floral and sweet. I finish work in an hour. Would you like to get food? I know a place nearby, very Filipino, very authentic. My heart is pounding like I'm 25. I'd like that very much. When she kisses my cheek before leaving to serve another customer, I touch the spot where her lips were. I know this doesn't make sense. I know what people would say. Old fool, midlife crisis, being taken advantage of. But right now I don't care. Right now I feel wanted. I've been in Manila 3 weeks. I came here thinking I'd be a tourist, see some sights, get some sun, then go home to my empty house. But then I walked into this bar on a Tuesday night, and Liza smiled at me, and everything changed. I tell myself this is real. I tell myself age doesn't matter when there's connection. I tell myself she's not like the stories you hear, the bar girl's looking for a meal ticket. Liza's a manager here. She's educated. She's different. But there's a voice in my head, small but persistent, that whispers, "Why would she want you?" I push it away. I push it deep down, because I need this. I need to feel young again, to feel desired, to feel like my life isn't just winding down toward nothing. Later, when we're sharing noodles at a tiny restaurant she's brought me to, she tells me about her mother who's sick in the provinces, about her dream of opening a small restaurant, about working double shifts to save money. I listen, and I want to help. I want to fix things for her. I want to be useful again. You're easy to talk to, she says, reaching across the table to touch my hand again. I feel like I've known you longer than 3 weeks. I feel the same way. I say, and I mean it. When I walk back to my hotel that night, Manila feels different. The humid air, the noise, the chaos, it all feels full of possibility instead of overwhelming. I'm not just a widowed warehouse manager from Liverpool anymore. I'm a man who's caught the attention of a beautiful woman. I'm a man with purpose. I'm a man who matters. I don't think about the 42-year age gap. I don't think about the warnings I've read online about foreigners in Filipinas. I don't think about anything except the way Liza looked at me tonight, the way she made me feel seen. That's all I want, to be seen, to matter, to not disappear into old age alone. 3 weeks ago I was nobody. Now I'm someone Liza wants to spend time with. That's worth everything. I need to tell you how we really met because it matters. It was my second week in Manila. I'd been doing the tourist things, Rizal Park, Intramuros, the mall. Everything felt empty though. I was still just going through motions, still trying to outrun the grief. That Tuesday night I walked into Liza's bar because it was near my hotel and I was tired of eating alone in my room. The place was almost dead, maybe 5 people total. I sat at the bar and ordered a San Miguel. Liza was working behind the counter. "First time here?" she asked, and I nodded. "First time in Manila?" I laughed. "That obvious? You have the look," she said, smiling. Lost but hopeful. I didn't expect that. Most people just make small talk. She wiped down the bar in front of me. "What brings you to the Philippines?" "Running away," I said, then immediately felt stupid. But she didn't laugh. "From what?" "My life, my house, my memories." I took a long drink. "My wife died 3 years ago and I haven't figured out how to live without her." Liza stopped wiping. "I'm very sorry. That must be incredibly hard." And here's the thing. She said it like she meant it. Not the performative sympathy I got from everyone back home. Real empathy. We talked for 2 hours that night. She told me she grew up in a small town south of Manila, came to the city for university but had to drop out when her father died. "I sent money home to my mother," she explained. "She's not well, diabetes and heart problems. The medical costs are crushing." I nodded, thinking about the NHS, how I never worried about medical bills with Margaret. "It must be hard," I said. "It is, but I'm lucky to have this job. The manager position pays enough to send something home each month." She smiled, but it looked tired. "I dream about opening a restaurant someday. Small place, home-style Filipino food. But that's just a dream." "Dreams can come true," I said, feeling bold from the beer. "Maybe," she said softly. "Maybe." The next night I came back, and the next. Each time we talked more, laughed more, shared more. She asked about Margaret, about my years working in the warehouse, about Liverpool. "It sounds cold," she said, laughing. "It is bloody freezing," I admitted. "That's partly why I'm here, wanted to thaw out." "And are you?" she asked. "Thawing?" I looked at her. "Getting there." By the end of the second week we were meeting outside the bar. She'd take me to local places, real Filipino spots where I was the only foreigner. She'd translate menus and teach me Tagalog phrases. "Salamat" means thank you. She'd say patiently, "Masarap" means delicious. I felt like a student again, eager to learn, eager to impress. One night after dinner, we were walking along the bay. She stopped and turned to me. "Malcolm, can I tell you something?" "Of course. I don't usually spend time with customers like this. I keep my work and my life separate." She looked vulnerable suddenly. "But you're different. You listen. You care. You don't just see me as a bar girl." My heart broke a little. "I'd never think that." "Some men do," she said quietly. "They come here thinking every Filipina is for sale. It's insulting." "I don't think that about you," I said firmly. "I think you're intelligent and kind and working hard to build a life." She smiled, and then she kissed me. Just a gentle kiss, barely more than a brush of lips. But I felt 25 again. We stood there on the bay walk, the city lights reflecting off the water. And I thought, this is what I came here for. This feeling, this connection, this proof that my life isn't over. When I got back to my hotel, there was a WhatsApp message from Terry. Terry's been my mate since we were teenagers. He's the only person from home I'd told about Manila. "How's paradise, mate?" his message said. I typed back, "Met someone." 3 dots appeared immediately. "Malcolm. Be careful. You know what they say about those places." I stared at the message, feeling defensive. She's not like that. She's educated, has a real job. We just connect. They all connect until they need money. I'm just saying, be smart about this. I put my phone down, annoyed. Terry didn't understand. He'd been married to the same woman for 40 years. He didn't know what it felt like to be alone, to be invisible, to wonder if anyone would ever want you again. Liza wanted me. She saw me. She kissed me. That was real. The next few weeks were like a dream. She introduced me to her friends. We went to movies, markets, restaurants. She never asked for money, never suggested anything. She just wanted to spend time with me. "My mother wants to meet you," she said one evening. "She keeps asking about the kind Englishman I'm always talking about." "I'm from Liverpool, not England," I corrected with a smile. "Same thing," she teased. But inside I was glowing. She talked about me to her mother. I mattered to her family. "I'd love to meet her," I said. Liza's face lit up. "Really? She's in the province. It's a few hours' drive, but we could go this weekend." "Let's do it," I said, not even hesitating. That night, Terry called me on WhatsApp video. "Malcolm, talk to me. What's really going on there?" I was sitting in my hotel room, and I could see myself in the camera looking happier than I had in years. "I'm happy, Terry. For the first time since Margaret, I'm actually happy." "With a woman 40 years younger?" His voice was careful but skeptical. "Age is just a number," I said, hearing how defensive I sounded. "Is it though? Malcolm, mate, I love you. We've been friends our whole lives. I just don't want to see you get hurt." "I'm not getting hurt," I said firmly. "Liza cares about me. We have something real." Terry sighed. "Just be careful with your money. Don't send anything. Don't invest in anything. Don't—" "I'm not stupid," I interrupted, suddenly angry. "I know what I'm doing." "Do you?" he asked quietly. "Because from here it looks like you're running from grief straight into something that doesn't make sense." I ended the call. I told myself Terry was just jealous, just old and cynical. He didn't understand what Liza and I had. But late that night, alone in my room, his words echoed. "Don't send money. Don't invest. Be careful." I pushed them away. Liza hadn't asked me for anything. She worked hard, paid her own way. She was with me because she wanted to be. I knew what this was. I was in control, or so I thought. It was our 6th week together when everything changed. We were at her apartment, a small place she shared with a roommate in Pasay. The roommate was out, and we were cooking adobo together. She was teaching me how to properly brown the chicken. "Like this," she said, guiding my hand on the spatula. Everything felt domestic and comfortable. Then her phone rang. She looked at the screen and her face went pale. "I need to take this," she said, stepping onto the tiny balcony. I couldn't hear the conversation, but I saw her posture change. Her shoulders slumped. When she came back inside, she was crying. "Liza, what's wrong?" I asked, immediately moving to her. She shook her head, wiping her eyes. "It's my mother. She's in the hospital again. Her blood sugar spiked and she had some kind of episode. They're running tests. I'm so sorry," I said, holding her. "How serious is it?" "They don't know yet, but the hospital is asking for a deposit before they'll do more tests." 20,000 pesos. Her voice broke. "I don't have it right now. I just sent money for her medications last week." I did the math quickly in my head. 20,000 pesos was about 300 quid. Not nothing, but not devastating either. "I can help," I heard myself say. She pulled back, looking at me with red eyes. No, no, Malcolm, I can't ask you for that. You're not asking, I'm offering. I meant it. What good was my pension if I couldn't help someone I cared about? I'll pay you back, she said immediately, as soon as I get paid next week. Don't worry about that now, I said, pulling her close again. Let's just make sure your mum gets the care she needs. The gratitude in her eyes made me feel 10 feet tall. I transferred 800 quid that night through Western Union. Liza cried and called me her hero. I don't know what I would have done without you, she whispered. You saved her life. I didn't think I'd saved anyone's life. I just sent some money. But the way she looked at me, the way she held me that night, it made me feel essential, needed, important. 2 weeks later, she called me in tears again. The landlord is threatening to evict me. I'm 3 weeks behind on rent because of the hospital bills. My stomach dropped. How much do you need? 40,000 pesos. But Malcolm, I can't keep asking you. This is too much. How much is that in pounds? I asked, already pulling out my phone. About 500. But I can't. Consider it done, I said. No arguments. I sent 1,200 quid this time, enough for rent and some extra for food. She protested, but I insisted. You'd do the same for me, I said, though I knew that wasn't possible. She didn't have money. I did. That's how it worked. That night she brought me to meet some of her family. Her cousin June was there, a friendly guy in his mid-30s, with a wide smile and a firm handshake. So you're the famous Malcolm, June said in perfect English. Liza talks about you all the time. All good things, I hope, I said, pleased. Very good things. She says you're very generous, very kind. He clapped me on the shoulder. We need more men like you in the world. We had dinner at an outdoor restaurant, and June paid for everything. I offered, but he refused. You're family now, he said with a grin. Family doesn't let family pay. I liked June immediately. He was educated, running some kind of import business, and he seemed genuinely fond of Liza. I'm glad she found you, he told me later when Liza was in the bathroom. She's had a hard life. She deserves someone who treats her well. I care about her very much, I said honestly. June leaned in conspiratorially. Can I ask you something? Are you planning to stay in the Philippines long term? I hadn't really thought about it. I don't know. My tourist visa is good for a few more weeks. Because if you wanted to stay longer, I could help with that. I have connections with an immigration consultant. We could get you a longer visa, maybe even a retirement visa. It's complicated, but I know the system. Really, I said, interested now. The thought of going back to Liverpool, to the empty house and the endless gray, made me feel sick. Here I had Liza. I had sunshine. I had purpose. How would that work? Let me look into it, June said. I'll ask around, see what your options are. But Malcolm, if you're serious about Liza, you should consider staying. Long distance doesn't work. He was right. I knew he was right. When Liza came back, June announced, I'm going to help Malcolm get a proper visa so he can stay with you. Her face lit up. Really? You'd stay? I looked at her hopeful eyes and knew I'd already made the decision. If I can, yes, I want to stay. She kissed me right there in front of everyone, and people at nearby tables smiled and clapped. I felt like I was in a movie. A week later, June called me. I've got good news. My consultant can handle everything for you. It's not cheap, processing fees and all, but he can get you a 1-year visa that you can convert to a retirement visa later. How much? I asked. About 150,000 pesos. That's roughly 2,000 pounds. I hesitated. That was real money. But what was I going home to? An empty house? Memories that hurt? Here I had Liza. I had a reason to wake up. Okay, I said. Let's do it. Great. He'll need half up front to start processing. I'll arrange a meeting. I transferred 2,500 quid to June's account that afternoon. He promised everything would be handled, that I'd have proper documentation within 6 weeks. Liza cried when I told her. You're really staying? For me? For us? I corrected. I'm building a life here. That night, lying in her tiny bed with the fan rattling overhead and the sound of Manila traffic outside, I felt content. Yes, I'd spent nearly 5,000 quid in 2 months, but I'd bought time with someone who cared about me. I'd helped her mother get medical care. I'd secured my ability to stay. This was an investment in my future. In our future, Terry texted me the next morning. How's things? I thought about telling him everything, but decided against it. Good, I replied. Really good. When are you coming home? I stared at the message for a long time before answering. Not sure. Might extend the trip. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, be careful, mate. I didn't respond. I didn't need Terry's worry. I knew what I was doing. I was building something real with Liza. I was her protector, her provider. I wasn't just a lonely old man anymore. I was essential. I mattered. The fact that I'd sent her nearly 5,000 quid in 6 weeks didn't bother me. That's what you did when you cared about someone. That's what love was. Or at least that's what I told myself. It started small. Tiny cracks I convinced myself meant nothing. One afternoon I went to pick Liza up from work and she wasn't there. I waited outside her bar for 30 minutes, texting her, calling. Nothing. Finally, she texted back. Sorry, had to run errands. Meet you at the apartment later? No explanation of what errands or why she didn't tell me beforehand. When I got to her place that evening, she was distracted, her phone buzzing constantly. Everything okay? I asked. Fine, she said, not looking up from her screen. Just work stuff. But it was 8 at night. What work stuff? I didn't ask. The next week I noticed her mood shifting based on something I couldn't identify. Some days she was warm and affectionate. Other days she barely acknowledged me. Are you feeling all right? I'd ask. I'm fine, Malcolm. Just tired. One evening we were supposed to go to dinner. I was waiting at her apartment when she texted, Sorry, can't make it tonight. Something came up with my mom. I called her immediately. Is everything okay? Does she need to go to the hospital? No, nothing like that. Just family stuff. I'll explain later. She didn't explain later. When I asked the next day, she got defensive. Why are you interrogating me? Can't I have one evening with my family without you? I backed off immediately. Of course. Sorry. I was just worried. But something felt off. A few nights later, I was at a restaurant near her apartment, waiting for her to finish work. I saw her outside her building, laughing with a young guy. They were standing close, too close. She touched his arm. He leaned in and whispered something that made her laugh harder. My chest tightened. When she saw me, her expression shifted. She said something to the guy and came over. Who was that? I tried to sound casual. My cousin. I told you he lives nearby. That's your cousin? Something in my voice made her eyes narrow. Yes, Malcolm. Why? Are you jealous? No, You just what? Don't trust me? Her voice was sharp now. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. She crossed her arms. I'm not your possession, Malcolm. I never said you were. I felt off balance, defensive when I'd done nothing wrong. I just asked who he was, and I told you, if you can't trust me, maybe this isn't working. The thought of losing her made my stomach drop. I'm sorry. You're right. I'm being stupid. Forget I said anything. She softened slightly. It's okay. But you need to trust me. That night when I got back to my hotel, Terry called. Malcolm, we need to talk. About what? I was exhausted, emotionally drained. Beth called me. She's worried about you. Says you're not answering her calls. I'd been avoiding my daughter. I knew she'd ask questions I didn't want to answer. I've been busy. Busy with what? Or busy with who? His tone was careful. She's worried you're making a mistake out there. What did you tell her? I asked, defensive. Nothing specific. But Malcolm, mate, I am worried. How much money have you sent this woman? That's none of your business. It is when you're acting like this. You've been gone 3 months. You've stopped calling. You're avoiding your daughter. This isn't like you. Maybe I'm changing, I snapped. Maybe I'm finally living my life instead of being stuck in the past. Or maybe you're running from the past straight into something that's going to destroy you, Terry said quietly. She's playing you, Malcolm. This is textbook. The sick mother, the emergencies, the cousin who can fix visas. It's a bloody script. You don't know what you're talking about, I said, my voice rising. You've never met her. You don't know, Liza. I don't need to meet her. I've heard this story 100 times. Lonely bloke, young foreign woman. Money starts disappearing. Fuck off, Terry. The words came out harsh. I'm not some naive idiot. I know exactly what I'm doing. Do you? Because it doesn't sound like it. How much have you sent her? That's between me and Liza. How much, Malcolm? Enough, I said. Enough to help someone I care about. Is that a crime? Terry was quiet for a moment. It's not a crime to care, but it's foolish to be blind. Just promise me you'll be careful. Don't send any more money. Not until you're absolutely certain about what this is. I am certain, I said, but my voice wavered. I have to go. I hung up before he could respond, but his words dug into me. I lay in bed that night staring at the ceiling, doing math I didn't want to do. $5,000 for the hospital and rent. $2,500 for the visa processing. Another few hundred in dinners, gifts, taxis. I'd spent nearly 8,000 quid in 3 months. That was a significant chunk of my savings. But it wasn't like I was destitute. I had my pension. I had money in the bank back home. This was temporary. Once June got my visa sorted, once Liza's mother was stable, things would level out. The next morning I found a receipt in Liza's apartment. A receipt from a high-end boutique. 2,000 pesos for a handbag. I stared at it, feeling confused. She'd told me she was broke, behind on rent, struggling to send money home. But she'd bought an expensive handbag? When she came out of the shower, I held up the receipt. What's this? She glanced at it, and something flickered across her face. It's not mine. It was in your bag. My friend bought it. She left the receipt here by mistake. Her voice was defensive again, that same edge from before. Which friend? Does it matter? Why are you going through my things? I wasn't going through anything. It fell out when I was looking for a pen. I felt like I was the one in the wrong somehow. You said you were struggling with money. I am struggling. That doesn't mean I can't have one nice thing. My friend loaned me money for it. Is that okay with you? Her eyes were hard now. Or do I need your permission for everything? No, of course not. I'm sorry. I put the receipt down, feeling ashamed for asking. I didn't mean anything by it. But later, alone, I kept coming back to it. If she had a friend who could loan her money for handbags, why did she need mine for rent? I texted Terry against my better judgment. How do you know when you're being paranoid versus when something's actually wrong? His response came quickly. When you have to ask that question, something's wrong. Trust your gut. I didn't respond. I didn't want to trust my gut because my gut was starting to scream at me. Instead, I did what I'd been doing for months. I pushed it down. I made excuses. I told myself Liza was under stress, that I was being controlling, that this was normal relationship stuff. I told myself I was building something worth the investment. But late at night, when I couldn't sleep, I'd do the math again. 8,000 quid, 3 months, a woman who got angry when I asked simple questions, a cousin who needed money up front for visa processing, a sick mother who always needed more. Terry's words echoed. This is textbook. I rolled over and closed my eyes, forcing myself not to think about it. I'd already committed. I'd already sent the money. I'd already fallen in love with the idea of what this could be. Turning back now would mean admitting I'd been a fool, and I wasn't ready to do that. Not yet. June called me on a Wednesday afternoon. Malcolm, my friend, I have an opportunity for you. Can we meet for coffee? We met at a Starbucks in Makati. June was dressed sharp, expensive watch, pressed shirt. He ordered for both of us and got straight to business. I've been thinking about your situation. You want to stay in the Philippines long term, yes? That's the plan, I said. And you want to build a future with Liza? Yes, he leaned forward. Then you need to think about property. Real estate here is booming. Foreigners can't own land, but they can own condos. It's a smart investment and gives you a permanent base. I hadn't thought about buying property. I'm still waiting on the visa you're processing, which is taking longer than expected, I'll be honest. These government offices move slowly, but that's separate from this. This is about securing your future. He pulled out his phone and showed me photos of a condo development in Quezon City. Modern, clean, with a pool. This unit is perfect. 2 bedrooms, fully furnished. The developer is my client. I can get you a deal. How much? I asked, already feeling uneasy. Market value is about 6 million pesos, but for you, because you're family, we can do 5.2 million. That's about 65,000 pounds. I nearly choked on my coffee. That's a lot of money, June. It's an investment, Malcolm. You'll make it back when values increase. Plus you and Liza will have a proper home. No more renting. He showed me more photos. The place did look nice. Think about it. You're spending what, 30,000 pesos a month on your hotel? That's money you're throwing away. Put it toward ownership instead. He made it sound logical. I don't know, I said. That's most of my savings, which is exactly why you should invest it. Make it work for you. Look, the developer needs an answer by next week. Units are selling fast. I can hold it for you, but I need to know you're serious. That evening I mentioned it to Liza. Her eyes went wide. A condo? In Quezon City? June says it's a good investment. It is. She grabbed my hands. Malcolm, we could actually have a home together. A real home. Not my tiny apartment or your hotel. Our place. The way she said our place made my heart clench. You'd want that? To live with me properly? Of course I would. She looked almost hurt. Why would you even ask? I just want to make sure this is what you want. It's a big step. It's the step I've been hoping you'd take, she said softly. I love you, Malcolm. I want a future with you. This would make that real. She'd never said she loved me before. Those words unlocked something in me. I love you too, I said, my voice thick. That night I lay awake doing the math. 65,000 pounds. I had about 75,000 in total savings. This would wipe me out. But what was I saving for? I had no other plans. No other dreams. And Liza loved me. She wanted a future with me. Terry's voice echoed in my head. Don't invest in anything. But Terry didn't understand. He had a wife, a stable life. I had nothing back home. Here I had Liza. Here I had a chance at happiness. I called June the next morning. I want to do it. Excellent decision, my friend. You won't regret this. He connected me with Mr. Santos, the property agent. Santos was professional, showed me all the paperwork, explained the process. We'll need 45,000 pounds as a deposit to secure the unit. The rest can be paid over 90 days. I transferred the money that afternoon, 45,000 pounds from my savings account. The biggest single transaction I'd ever made. When it cleared, Liza cried, I can't believe you did this. For us. For our future, I said, holding her. June arranged for us to visit the site a week later. There was a model unit we could see. We took a taxi to Quezon City. The development looked legitimate. Construction crews working. Signage everywhere. It'll be ready in 6 months, Santos explained, showing us around the model unit. Full furnishing included, as discussed. The place was beautiful. Modern kitchen, spacious bedrooms, a balcony overlooking the city. This is really ours, Liza whispered, squeezing my hand. Really ours, I confirmed. We took photos. She posted them on Facebook with the caption, Dreams Coming True. I felt proud. For the first time in years, I felt like I was building something meaningful. Over the next 2 months, I paid the remaining balance, £20,000 transferred in stages, as Santos requested. Each time he sent receipts, official-looking documents with stamps and signatures. Everything's progressing smoothly. June assured me, you'll have the keys by December. But then I started noticing inconsistencies. The contract had Liza's name on it, not mine. That's normal, Santos explained when I asked. Foreigners can own condos, but it's easier if a Filipino is the primary on the paperwork. She can add you once you have your permanent visa. It made sense, sort of. But something felt off. The visa June was processing still hadn't come through. Government slowdowns, he kept saying. These things take time. I tried to visit the property in November, just to see the progress. I took a taxi to the address on the contract. But when I got there, the building number didn't exist. I walked the entire block twice. There was construction, but none of it matched what I'd seen. I called Santos. I'm at the address, but I can't find the building. There was a pause. Which address are you at? I read it off the contract. Another pause. That's the developer's office address. The actual property is in a different area. I'll send you the correct location. He sent an address. I went there. It was a half-finished building that looked abandoned. No workers, no signage, nothing like what we'd visited. My chest tightened. I called again. This time Santos didn't answer. I tried June, straight to voicemail. I tried 3 more times. Nothing. I went back to Liza's apartment, my hands shaking. She wasn't there. I sat on her step and waited. When she finally arrived, I stood. We need to talk about the property. Her expression shifted. Something guarded. What about it? I can't find it. The address on the contract doesn't match anything. Santos isn't answering. Neither is June. She looked away. I don't know anything about that. They handled everything. Your name is on the contract, Liza. June said that was normal. Her voice was defensive now. I trusted them. I trusted you. £65,000, Liza. That's everything I have. I felt panic rising. I need to know what's happening. I don't know, she snapped. I'm not a property expert. Talk to June. Talk to Santos. Don't interrogate me. I'm not interrogating. I'm trying to understand. Well, I can't help you. She pushed past me into her apartment. I need to get ready for work. She closed the door in my face. I stood there, 71 years old, in a foreign country, realizing I might have just lost everything I'd spent my life building, and the woman I loved had just shut the door on me. For 3 days I tried to reach June and Santos. Nothing. Their phones went straight to voicemail. Their Facebook profiles disappeared. I went to the immigration office to check on my visa application. We have no record of anyone by your name applying for a visa in the past 6 months, the clerk told me. My stomach dropped. That's impossible. I paid for processing. I have receipts. Do you have a receipt from this office? No, my friend handled it, June Reyes. He said he had connections. The clerk looked at me with something like pity. Sir, there are many scams targeting foreigners. If someone took your money privately and didn't submit it through official channels, there's nothing we can do. I walked out of that office feeling like I was underwater. Everything was muffled. My chest hurt. I checked my UK bank account on my phone. £3,000 left. That was it. 72 years of working, saving, being careful, and I had £3,000 left. I'd given away everything else. For a visa that didn't exist, for a property that didn't exist, for a future that didn't exist. I went straight to Liza's bar. She wasn't working. She called in sick, the manager told me. I knew her apartment. I went there, knocked. No answer. Liza, I know you're in there. Please, we need to talk. Nothing. I just want to understand what happened. Please. The door opened, but just a crack. She didn't look sick. She looked annoyed. What do you want, Malcolm? The visa was fake. The property might be fake. June and Santos are gone. I've lost everything, she sighed, like I was being dramatic. That's not my fault. Your name is on the property contract, which I didn't ask for. June arranged that. You agreed to it. Her voice was cold in a way I'd never heard. I was just trying to help you. Help me? You've taken £65,000. Your cousin took another $2,500. I've sent you money for hospitals, rent, emergencies. I have nothing left, Liza. I didn't force you to do any of that. She crossed her arms. You offered. You wanted to help. That's not my problem. I stared at her, not recognizing the person in front of me. I did it because I love you. Then you're an idiot. The words hit like a slap. What? You heard me. She opened the door wider now, not inviting me in, but not hiding anymore. You're an old man who was lonely and desperate. I was nice to you. I let you take me places. That doesn't mean I owe you anything. You said you loved me. My voice cracked. I said what you needed to hear. She shrugged. You wanted a fantasy. I gave it to you. You paid for it. That's the transaction. Transaction? I couldn't breathe properly. You called it love. Love? She laughed, actually laughed. Malcolm, look at yourself. You're 71. I'm 29. What did you think this was? I didn't know what I thought anymore. Right then my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered without thinking. Mr. Malcolm? This is Corazon, Liza's mother. The sick mother. I heard about your troubles. I'm calling because Liza mentioned you might be able to help with my medical costs again. The hospital is asking for another payment. I looked at Liza. She looked back at me, no expression. Your mother is calling me for money right now. Liza shrugged. She doesn't know about your situation. I'll tell her you can't help. Can't help? My voice rose. I've sent thousands for her hospital bills, and I'm grateful for that, Corazon said on the phone. But I need another 20,000 pesos or they'll discharge me without treatment. I don't have it, I said flatly. I don't have anything anymore. Silence. Then Corazon hung up. No goodbye, no apology, just a click. I looked at Liza. Was she ever actually sick? Does it matter? Liza checked her phone, bored now. Malcolm, you need to leave. I have plans. Plans with who? None of your business. With the man I saw you with, your cousin? I made air quotes. Angry now. Is he even your cousin? He's my boyfriend, she said it casually. Has been for 3 years. He lives in Cavite. The floor tilted. Your boyfriend. Did you really think I was single? She looked almost amused. I work in a bar in Makati. I meet foreign men every night. Some of them are generous. You were very generous. I thought we were building a life together. You thought a lot of things that weren't true. She opened the door fully. Now, please leave. I'm done with this conversation. I have £3,000 left, Liza. That's all. That's everything. You've destroyed me. I didn't destroy you. You destroyed yourself. Her voice was matter of fact. You came here desperate and lonely. You threw money at a pretty girl hoping it would buy you happiness. That's not my fault. I loved you. No, you loved the idea of being needed, of being important. I just let you believe it. She stepped back. Don't come here again. Don't call me. Don't message me. We're done. You can't just, I can, and I am. Leave now, or I'll call security. She moved to close the door. I heard a man's voice inside, young, laughing. Liza, who's that? The voice called in Tagalog. She answered in Tagalog, something I didn't understand. Then she looked at me one last time. Goodbye, Malcolm. I hope you learned something from this. She closed the door. I stood in that hallway for I don't know how long, 71 years old, in a foreign country, with £3,000 to my name. I'd given everything to a woman who saw me as a transaction. I'd believed every word, believed in the love, the future, the connection. But it was all a performance. Every kiss, every I love you, every grateful tear, all of it was carefully constructed to extract as much money as possible, and I'd handed it over willingly. eagerly, desperately, because I was lonely and she made me feel young. I walked out of that building and kept walking. I didn't know where I was going. I just walked. The sun was setting over Manila, the city glowing orange and pink. It should have been beautiful. Instead, it looked alien, hostile. I'd come here to escape my grief. Now I had new grief to carry. Grief for my lost savings. Grief for my stupidity. Grief for the man I'd been before I met Liza, before I convinced myself that age didn't matter and love could be bought. Terry had warned me. Beth would never forgive me. I destroyed everything because I wanted to believe I mattered to someone. And now I was alone in a way I'd never been alone before. Not just lonely, decimated. I moved out of my hotel the next day. Couldn't afford it anymore. Found a guest house in Malate that charged 200 pesos a night, about £3. The room was the size of a closet. Shared bathroom down the hall. Stained walls. A fan that rattled all night. But it was all I could afford. I did the math constantly. £3,000. At current expenses, I could survive maybe 3 months. 4 if I stopped eating properly. My tourist visa was expiring in 3 weeks. I had no legitimate path to extend it. June had taken my money and disappeared. I contacted a lawyer I found online, Mr. De Leon, Filipino but educated in London. He spoke like me, understood me. I need your advice. I told him, sitting in his small office in Makati. I've been scammed, property fraud, visa fraud. I've lost about £65,000. He listened to the whole story. When I finished, he sat back. Mr. Malcolm, I'm very sorry. This is unfortunately common. We see cases like this weekly. Can I get my money back? Theoretically, yes. You could file charges for fraud, estafa, under Philippine law. But realistically, he shook his head. The cost of pursuing it will exceed what you lost. Filipino courts move slowly. You'd need to stay in country for potentially years. Hire a lawyer, which isn't cheap. And even if you win, collecting on a judgment is nearly impossible if they've hidden assets or fled. So I have no recourse. You could report it to the police. They'll file a report, but without significant evidence or witnesses willing to testify, it won't go anywhere. These people are experienced. They know how to avoid prosecution. He paused. My advice? Cut your losses. Go home. Rebuild there where you have support systems. I can't go home, I said quietly. Why not? Because I'm ashamed. Because I'll have to tell my daughter I destroyed everything she might have inherited. Because my friends were right and I called them liars. Mr. De Leon looked at me with real compassion. Pride is expensive, Mr. Malcolm. More expensive than you can currently afford. I left his office with no answers. Just the weight of reality. That night I lay on the thin mattress in my guest house room, listening to traffic and voices through the walls. I'd worked 43 years in that warehouse. Started when I was 18. Steady. Reliable. Saved what I could. Bought a small house in Liverpool. Raised Beth. Built a modest but secure life. Margaret and I never had much, but we had enough. When she died, I had about £80,000 between savings and her life insurance. Not rich, but comfortable. Safe. In 6 months, I'd given away $75,000 of it to a woman who never loved me, for a property that never existed, for a visa that was never processed. I was 71 years old with £3,000 and no plan. I stopped answering my phone. Beth had called 6 times. Terry had called 12. I couldn't face them. Not yet. I spent my days walking Manila, watched people live their lives, vendors selling food, children playing, couples laughing. I was invisible, just another old white guy in a city full of them. One evening I wandered into the bar where I'd met Liza, different manager now. I ordered a San Miguel. The bartender was a woman around 40. Name tag, said Gina. You look familiar, she said, setting down the beer. I used to come here a lot, few months back. With Liza? She said the name carefully. I nodded, unable to speak. Gina wiped down the bar. I'm sorry. You know what happened? Not specifically, but I've seen her pattern. You're not the first. She glanced around, then leaned in. She did this to 3 men last year that I know of. All foreign, all older, all left broke. My chest felt hollow. Why didn't anyone warn me? Would you have listened? She had a point. She's good at what she does. Makes you feel special. Makes you feel young. Then she bleeds you dry and moves on. Who's the cousin? Jun? Not her cousin. Her boyfriend's business partner. They run it together. Property scams mostly. Sometimes visa fraud. Sometimes just direct money requests. Depends on the mark. Mark, that's what I was. A mark. Does anyone ever get their money back? Never heard of it, Gina said. These guys know what they're doing. They target lonely foreigners who are too ashamed to report it. Too embarrassed to admit they were fooled. I'm all those things, I said quietly. Then you're doing exactly what they hoped you'd do. She poured me another beer. On the house. For what it's worth, you seem like a decent person. You didn't deserve this. I drank the beer, then another, stumbled back to my guest house in the dark, lay on my bed and cried for the first time since Margaret died. Not quiet tears, loud, body-shaking sobs, for my stupidity, for my loneliness, for the life I'd destroyed chasing a fantasy. The next morning I woke to pounding on my door. Rent is due, the owner shouted. You're 2 days late. I paid him. Watched my £3,000 become 2,700. At this rate, I'd be out of money by February. Then what? Sleep on the street? Beg outside 7-Eleven? I opened my laptop. Went to an expat forum I'd been reading before everything fell apart. There were sections for warnings about scams. I recognized names, similar stories. Met a woman in Makati. Sent money for her mother's hospital bills. Now she won't answer. Invested in a condo with my girlfriend's cousin. Can't find the property. Help. Immigration consultant took my money for a visa. No visa. No consultant. We were all the same. Lonely men who wanted to believe we were special. I created an account. Started typing. I need help. I'm 71, British, in Manila. I was scammed by a woman named Liza and her associates Jun and Santos. Lost approximately £70,000. Currently have £2,700 left. Tourist visa expiring in 10 days. Don't know what to do. Posted it. Within an hour I had responses. Go to your embassy. They can help repatriate you. You'll have to swallow your pride and ask family for help. File a police report even if nothing comes of it. At least create a record. Don't send any more money. Don't trust anyone offering to help get your money back for a fee. That's another scam. One message was private, from a guy named David. I went through similar. Lost £50,000 to a woman in Cebu. Felt like I wanted to die. But I called my brother, admitted everything, and he helped me get home. It was humiliating, but I survived. You'll survive too if you stop hiding. I read that message 5 times. I didn't want to survive. I wanted to disappear. That night I almost did something stupid. Stood on my balcony, looking down at the street 4 floors below. Thought about how easy it would be. Just step over. End the shame, end the regret. But I thought about Beth. She'd already lost her mother. If I did this, she'd lose me too. And she'd blame herself for not trying harder to stay in touch. I couldn't do that to her. I stepped back inside, picked up my phone, called Terry. It rang 4 times. Malcolm? His voice was rough with relief. Terry, I fucked up. The words tumbled out. I fucked up so bad. You were right. About everything. And I'm sorry. I'm so fucking sorry. Where are you? Manila. I've got about £2,000 left. My visa's expiring. I don't know what to do. I was crying again. I don't know how to fix this. You don't have to fix it alone, Terry said quietly. I'm going to help you. We're going to get you home. I can't pay you back. I don't care about money. His voice cracked. You're my best mate. I'm not leaving you there. Give me your bank details. I'm sending you £500 tonight. That'll get you by until I can sort a flight. Terry, don't argue. You'd do the same for me. He paused. And Malcolm? Call Beth. She deserves to know you're okay. That night, Terry transferred £500. The next morning, I called Beth. Dad? She sounded scared. Where have you been? Manila, I said. I'm in Manila, and I need to tell you something. I told her everything. The whole pathetic story. She was quiet for a long time. Then, I'm so angry at you. I know, but I love you, and I'm glad you're safe. Her voice broke. Please come home. Please. I will, I promised. Soon. She sent me £200. Said it was all she could spare, but she wanted to help. I cried again. Not from sadness, but from the realization that I had people who loved me despite my stupidity. Over the next week, Terry arranged everything. Booked me a flight for the following Monday. Sent money to cover my remaining guest house stay. Even contacted the British consulate to make sure there'd be no issues with my departure. I packed my single bag. Walked through Manila one last time. Part of me wanted to go back to Liza's bar, confront her one more time. But what would be the point? She'd made her position clear. I was nothing to her, never had been. On my last evening, I walked past her bar anyway. Couldn't help myself. She was there, behind the bar, laughing with a man. White hair, expensive watch, probably late 60s. He looked at her the way I'd looked at her months ago. Like she was magic, like he'd finally found something real. I wanted to go in, to warn him, to tell him what was coming. But I didn't. He wouldn't believe me. Just like I hadn't believed Terry. He needed to learn his own lesson. I just hoped he could afford it. I walked away, went back to my guest house, lay in bed one last time listening to Manila through the thin walls. Tomorrow I'd leave this city, this country, this disaster I'd created. But I'd never leave the knowledge of what I'd done. That would follow me home and stay with me until I died. My flight was booked for Monday, but by Friday, my money ran out completely. Not almost out. Out. I had 43 pesos in my pocket. About 60 pence. Terry's transfer wouldn't hit until Saturday. I'd miscalculated. The guest house kicked me out Friday morning. No more credit, the owner said, not unkindly. You pay now or you go. I couldn't pay. I took my bag and left. Spent Friday walking. Bought a bottle of water with my remaining pesos. Sat in the park. I hadn't eaten since Thursday morning. By Friday night, my stomach hurt. I walked to a fast food restaurant and watched people eat. The smell of fried chicken made me dizzy. I thought about asking someone for money. Couldn't do it. Still had that much pride left. Slept that night on a bench in Rizal Park. Security guard woke me at dawn. You can't sleep here. Sorry, I muttered, gathering my bag. Saturday morning I checked my phone. Terry's money had cleared. £300. Enough to eat, enough for a cheap place until Monday. I found a different guest house. Even cheaper than the last. Paid for 2 nights. Bought food. Ate too fast and felt sick. That afternoon I broke down and wrote a post in the expat forum. I'm 71. British. In Manila. I've been scammed and lost everything. My flight home is Monday, but I'm struggling to eat until then. If anyone can spare a few pounds to help me survive the weekend, I'd be grateful. I'll pay you back once I'm home and sorted. I included my PayPal, posted it. Felt ashamed for hours. This was what I'd become. A 71-year-old man, begging strangers on the internet. By Sunday morning, 7 people had sent money. £20 here, £50 there. Anonymous transfers with messages like, "Been there, mate," and "Get home safe." I cried reading them. Not tears of sadness, tears of gratitude that humans could still be kind to a stupid old fool who destroyed his own life. Monday came. Terry had arranged for someone from the consulate to meet me at the airport, make sure I got through check-in, a young woman named Claire. "Mr. Malcolm, I'm here to help you get checked in." She was professional but kind. made sure I had my boarding pass, walked me to security. "You'll be all right?" she asked. "I think so." I wanted to say more but couldn't find words. She patted my shoulder. "Safe travels. Try to forgive yourself. You're not the first, and you won't be the last." I went through security, sat at the gate. Around me, families traveled, couples laughed, business people worked on laptops. Everyone had somewhere to go, someone waiting. I had Terry and Beth. That was something, more than I deserved. The flight was 14 hours. I slept most of it. When I woke, we were over Europe. Gray clouds, gray land, home. Manchester Airport looked exactly like I remembered. Cold, efficient, British. Terry was waiting at arrivals. When he saw me, his face crumpled. "Bloody hell, Malcolm. I must have looked terrible. I'd lost weight. My clothes hung on me. I'm sorry," I said, because I didn't know what else to say. He hugged me. "Let's get you home." We drove to Liverpool in his car. I stared out the window at the motorway, the gray sky, the familiar landscape. It should have felt like coming home. Instead, it felt like arriving at the scene of my failure. "Beth wants to see you," Terry said. "Tomorrow. I told her to give you a night to settle." "What did you tell her?" "Everything you told me. She's hurt, but she's glad you're alive." That night I stayed in Terry's spare room. His wife Janet made me dinner. Shepherd's pie. I could barely eat. "You'll feel better once you've rested properly," she said kindly. But I wouldn't feel better. I knew that. I lay in bed in Terry's house and thought about my own house. The one I'd owned outright. The one I could have stayed in. Quiet and lonely, but safe. Instead, I'd run to Manila, chasing something that never existed. Tuesday, Beth came. I heard her car pull up, heard Terry let her in, heard her footsteps on the stairs. She knocked on the door. "Dad?" I opened it. She looked like her mother. Same eyes, same mouth. "Hi, love." She hugged me, then she pulled back and slapped my arm. Not hard, but firmly. "Don't you ever do that again. Ever." "I won't. I was so scared. I thought you died. I thought I'd lost you. I'm sorry." I sat on the bed. "I'm so sorry, Beth." She sat next to me. "How much did you lose?" "About 75,000 pounds. She closed her eyes. "Jesus, Dad. I know. That was everything. That was my inheritance. That was your security. I know." I couldn't look at her. I was lonely and stupid, and she made me feel young. I thought it was real. It wasn't real. It was never real. Everyone could see that except you. Beth's voice was sharp, but her hand found mine. "Why didn't you listen?" "Because I didn't want to hear it." We sat in silence. Finally, she said, "What are you going to do now?" "I don't know. Sell the house, I suppose. Find somewhere smaller. Live on my pension. It'll be tight, but I'll manage." "You can't sell the house. Where will you live?" "A flat somewhere. Cheaper than maintaining a house." "No." Beth stood up. "You're not selling the house. That's your home. That's where Mum lived. You're not giving that up too." "I don't have a choice, love." "You do." She crossed her arms. "I'm going to help you. I'll send you money each month. Not much. I can't afford much. But enough to keep you in your house." "Beth." "No. I can't take your money." "Yes, you can. Because if you don't, you'll end up in some depressing flat alone, and I'll feel guilty forever for not helping." Her voice cracked. "Please, Dad, let me help you," I cried then. Beth held me like I used to hold her when she was small. Over the next month, Terry and Beth helped me piece my life back together. Terry drove me back to my house. It was exactly as I'd left it. Empty, cold, full of memories. I'd been gone 6 months, but it felt like years. Beth came over that weekend. We cleaned together, threw out spoiled food, aired out rooms. "It'll be okay, Dad," she kept saying. But she didn't sound convinced. I applied for support from the council. They helped with heating costs, found a food bank nearby for when money was tight, signed up for pension credit. Every bit helped. My pension was about £1,100 a month, barely enough for bills, food, transport. Beth sent $200 monthly like she promised. It kept me afloat. But I'd gone from comfortable to surviving. From £75,000 saved to nothing. From planning a future to just trying to make it through each day. Terry came over twice a week. We'd watch football, drink tea. Sometimes he'd bring groceries. "You're not a charity case," he'd say when I protested. "You're my mate. This is what mates do." One night he asked, "Do you regret it, going to Manila?" I thought about it. I regret the money. I regret the stupidity. But I don't regret trying to not be lonely. That was real, even if she wasn't. You're not lonely now, though, are you? You've got me. You've got Beth. You've got Janet checking on you. He had a point. My life in Liverpool before Manila was empty. Now people called, visited, cared. Maybe I had to lose everything to realize what I already had, I said quietly. That's a bloody expensive lesson. It is. I smiled sadly. It really is. Months passed. I settled into a new routine, volunteered at a community center 2 days a week, helped organize events for pensioners, made a few friends. Beth visited monthly, brought my granddaughter sometimes. I'd barely known her before Manila. Now we baked together, watched cartoons, built Lego. I'd lost my money, lost my pride, lost my fantasy. But I'd found my family again. That was worth something. Not £75,000 worth, but something. I told myself that. Every day I told myself that. But late at night, when I couldn't sleep, I thought about Manila, about Liza, about the moment I handed over everything I had because I believed she loved me. And I wondered if I'd ever truly forgive myself, or if this shame was just something I'd carry until I died. The plane lifted off from Manila, and I watched the city disappear below. 6 months ago, I'd arrived full of hope. Now I was leaving with nothing but shame. The woman next to me smiled politely. "Holiday?" "Something like that," I said, turning away. I couldn't tell her the truth, that I'd come here retired and comfortable and was leaving broke and broken. The flight attendant served drinks. I ordered whiskey, then another. The man to my left, probably mid-60s, watched me. "Tough trip?" he finally asked. I laughed bitterly. "You could say that. Business or pleasure? Neither. Stupidity." He didn't push further. We sat in silence. I stared out the window at clouds and thought about the man I'd been 6 months ago. That Malcolm had just lost his wife, but he still had his dignity, his savings, his home, his pride. He was lonely, but he was safe. This Malcolm had nothing. I'd liquidated my pension savings, sent £75,000 to people who saw me as a transaction, believed every lie, ignored every warning, destroyed everything because I wanted to feel young, because I wanted to believe someone wanted me. "First time in the Philippines?" the man asked, breaking the silence again. "And last," I said quietly. He nodded. "I go there twice a year. My wife's from Cebu. How did you meet?" I don't know why I asked. Online, dating site. We talked for a year before I visited, met her family, did everything properly. He showed me his phone wallpaper. A smiling Filipina woman with kind eyes. Been married 8 years now. "Congratulations." "It can work," he said, as if reading my mind. "But you have to be smart about it. Take your time. Don't let emotions make you stupid." I let emotions make me very stupid, I admitted. Lost everything to a woman who never loved me. He winced. "I'm sorry, mate. That's rough. My own fault? Maybe. But they're good at what they do. The scammers, I mean. They know exactly what lonely men want to hear." He paused. "You heading home to family?" "My daughter. My best friend. They're picking me up. That's good. That's important." The rest of the flight was quiet. I dozed. Woke. Dozed again. Each time I woke, I hoped it had been a dream. That I'd open my eyes and be back in my Liverpool house. Margaret still alive. Beth still close. My savings intact. But it was real. All of it. When we started descending into Manchester, my chest tightened. This was it. Coming home defeated. Terry would be kind. Beth would be disappointed, and I'd spend the rest of my life rebuilding what I'd destroyed. The man next to me stood to get his bag. Good luck, mate. Hope things work out. Thank you. I meant it. Immigration was quick. The officer barely looked at me, just stamped my passport and waved me through. I collected my single bag from the carousel. Everything I owned in the world fit in one small suitcase. Walked through customs into arrivals. Terry was there. When he saw me, his eyes filled with tears. We didn't say anything, just hugged. "Let's get you home," he finally said. The drive to Liverpool was quiet. Gray motorway, gray sky, gray everything. "Beth's coming tomorrow," Terry said. "She wanted to come today, but I told her to wait." "How angry is she?" "Angry, hurt, scared, but relieved you're safe." "But you're still family." I nodded, not trusting my voice. That night in Terry's spare room, I lay awake. Janet had made up the bed with fresh sheets, put out towels, treated me like a guest, not a charity case. But I felt like a burden. I'd always been independent, proud. Now I was depending on friends to keep me fed. Tomorrow I'd face Beth, see the disappointment in her eyes, hear her ask the questions I couldn't answer. Why did you do it? Why didn't you listen? How could you be so stupid? I didn't have good answers. Just the truth. I was lonely. I wanted to matter. She made me feel alive, and I paid everything I had for 6 months of a fantasy. Was it worth it? No. Would I do it again? I wanted to say no, but part of me understood the man who got on that plane to Manila, the one who was so desperate to escape his grief that he'd risk everything. That man wasn't stupid. He was just broken. And Liza found the cracks and knew exactly how to widen them. I thought about her. Was she with the new man now? The one with white hair and the expensive watch? Was she telling him about her sick mother, her dream of a restaurant, her gratitude for his kindness? Was he falling just as hard as I had? I hope not, but I knew he probably was, because she was good at what she did, and lonely men are easy targets. I closed my eyes and tried to sleep. Tomorrow I'd start rebuilding, start accepting help, start forgiving myself. But tonight I let myself grieve. Not for the money, not even for Liza. I grieved for the man I'd been before Manila, the one who was lonely but safe. I'd never be that man again. This new Malcolm was stripped bare. No savings, no pride, no illusions. Just the cold truth that I'd destroyed everything because I couldn't bear to be alone. And now I'd spend the rest of my life learning to live with what I'd done. I've been back in Liverpool 4 months now, living in my house, the one I almost lost, the one Beth wouldn't let me sell. Terry comes by twice a week. We watch football. Sometimes we don't talk at all. Just sit in comfortable silence. That's friendship. Beth visits monthly, brings my granddaughter. We bake together, the 3 of us. Make a mess of the kitchen. Laugh. It's not much, but it's real. I volunteer at the community center 3 days a week. Help organize events for pensioners. Bingo nights, day trips, coffee mornings. I'm useful again. Not by sending money, just by showing up. There's a woman there, Margaret. Same name as my wife. She's 73, widowed 5 years. We talk sometimes. She asked me to coffee last week. I said yes. Then I panicked and canceled. I'm not ready. Maybe I'll never be ready. The shame still sits in my chest like a stone. Every time I check my bank account and see the nearly empty balance. Every time Beth sends me her monthly £200 and I remember she shouldn't have to. Every time Terry buys groceries and pretends it's no big deal. I know what I did. I gave away £75,000 to a woman who never loved me. I ignored everyone who tried to help me. I destroyed my financial security because I was desperate and lonely and stupid. I don't sleep well. I dream about Manila, about Liza's smile, about the moment she closed the door in my face, about standing in that hallway realizing everything I believed was a lie. Sometimes I dream about the property that never existed, about June's friendly smile, about Mr. Santos shaking my hand, about how they all played their parts perfectly. I was the perfect mark. Lonely, wealthy, desperate, proud, everything they needed me to be. One night last week I couldn't sleep. I picked up my phone and recorded a voice message. Not to send, just to say out loud. If I could go back, I'd tell myself this. Loneliness makes you stupid. Grief makes you blind. And some people see that and they use it. I paused, staring at my reflection in the dark screen. I don't blame her anymore. She did what she had to do. Survival, business, whatever you want to call it. She saw an opportunity and took it. That's not evil. It's just cold. Another pause. I blame myself for ignoring Terry, for avoiding Beth, for believing a 29-year-old woman could love a 71-year-old man she just met, for thinking money could buy connection, for running from grief instead of facing it. I stopped recording, listened to it, heard the defeat in my voice, then I deleted it, but the words stayed with me. I carry them everywhere now. When I see couples walking together, I remember I tried to buy that. When I hear about people retiring abroad, I remember how it destroyed me. When I feel lonely, I remember loneliness is better than devastation. Margaret from the community center asked me to coffee again yesterday. This time I said yes, we're meeting Thursday. I'm terrified. Not of her, of myself, of my ability to make the same mistakes again, but I'm going, because staying safe and isolated isn't living. And I've already lost too much to stop trying. I'm 71 years old. I have about 6,000 pounds to my name now, saved penny by penny from my pension. I live in a house I can barely afford to heat. I depend on my daughter's generosity and my friend's kindness. Everything I spent my life building is gone. But I survived. I came home. I admitted what I'd done. And somehow, impossibly, the people who love me still love me. That doesn't erase the shame. It doesn't give me back my money or my pride, but it means I'm not alone. Not really. Not anymore. If I could tell the man I used to be anything, the one who got on that plane to Manila full of hope, I'd say this: you're running from pain straight into more pain. The woman you're about to meet is not who she seems. The future you're imagining will never exist, and you're going to lose everything. But you'll survive. And you'll learn something you should have known all along. That love can't be bought. That loneliness is survivable, and that the people who matter most are the ones you're running from. I'd tell him all of that, but he wouldn't listen, because he's desperate, and desperate people don't hear warnings. They hear what they want to hear, just like I did. I walk past travel agencies sometimes, see posters for the Philippines, beautiful beaches, smiling people, paradise. I used to think it looked perfect. Now I just see the place that took everything from me. But it wasn't the place. It was me. I did this to myself. The Philippines was just where it happened. Last night I pulled out the photos I took in Manila. Liza and me at restaurants, by the bay, at the property site that never existed. In every photo I'm smiling, really smiling. I thought I was happy. I thought I'd found something real. Looking at them now, I see what I couldn't see then. She's not looking at me. Not really. She's looking at the camera. Performing. And I'm looking at her like she's the sun. That was the difference. I believed it. She was acting. I deleted the photos. All of them. I don't need reminders. The shame is reminder enough. Tomorrow Terry and I are going to a match. Liverpool, playing at home. He's paying for the tickets. Says it's an early birthday present. I know it's charity, but I'm grateful. Next week Beth is bringing my granddaughter to stay the night. We're going to build a blanket fort and watch Disney films. She's 6. She doesn't know what her grandfather did. She just knows he makes her pancakes and lets her stay up late. That's enough. I'm building a new life. Smaller, humbler, but honest. I'll never be comfortable again. I'll never retire abroad or take fancy holidays or leave Beth an inheritance. But I'll be here, present, real, trying to be better. That's all I have left, the willingness to try. I just hope it's enough, because I'm tired, so tired of carrying this shame, of remembering my stupidity, of wishing I could go back. But I can't go back. I can only go forward, one day at a time, one coffee with Margaret, one football match with Terry, one blanket fort with my granddaughter. Small moments, small joys. That's my life now, and maybe, eventually, that will be enough.